Well, how about we start
Uh,
with Michael M here, who submitted today, and you have the note there that says didn't get to the full 10, had to travel, but I think this is a really good submission, buddy. Hopefully, you'll listen to us if you're not live on this. But a couple of things that I always like to point out, and just things that I like is one, the simplicity of the actual image. I don't think you're overcomplicating stuff, which is great. A lot of people when they start out, they think that rendering is going to fix things, and so I find that is not always the case. And if you have a clear focal point, if you have just nice, tight, and confident line work, I think that really, really helps. And I see a lot of that in the stuff that you're doing here, Michael. So great. Um, this looks to me like the first assignment. Maybe I'm mistaken. If so, please correct me. So that first one, if you remember, it's to create single panel storytelling images. And they could be in sequence and tell one story. That's what some people have done. Or they can be individual images and tell a story there. So let's use that as what we're going to do to critique this. So that first one, if you click on it to make it bigger, it will be, it's kind of like, well, what I see is a guy grabbing a sword, and it looks like there's like a skull and maybe a book, like it could be in some kind of temple. So in terms of storytelling, I'm having to figure out what's going on, right? And so right there, I think is a sign like, oh, wait a minute, maybe you can construct this composition so that it has a lot more clues for your audience to understand what's going on. So if this were a single panel storytelling image, that I just want that panel to tell a lot, I think what I'd probably do is design the background a little bit more to give a time and place or just a location. And I'm not exactly sure what the sword significance is. Is he a ninja, or is he a samurai? Is he a medieval knight? Those are all different ways that you could show somebody picking up a sword. And of course, I'm riffing, I'm making this stuff up, but it's all about your story here, right? Am I onto something, Chad? Do you agree,
yeah,
disagree?
I agree with you on that. I think one of the big things for this too that might help with that, and this going to your clarification of the background, right? Whatever clues you add to that background will help add to the context of what the sword is. So if the sword is supposed to be like a treasure, right, setting your background to be like a museum that has treasures in the background, that makes us feel like that's where we're at, will then tell us, okay, that's what this is, and maybe this guy is trying to steal a sword or whatever, right? Or as you mentioned, a temple kind of thing. Go ahead, Michael. I think I saw you.
I was just gonna say that makes total sense. Just hearing y'all say that makes me realize, like, oh, I was working with a lot of assumptions within my head about what I knew about this scene, and obviously did not put them into the drawing.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you could join us. By the way, this is great. And I think you're close, but I think what you're saying is totally right on. That you can't make any assumptions for your audience. It's gotta be in the image, right? To tell all the story here. Can we go to the next one?
I
Like maybe
think
we can look at a couple of these. So the next one
I
I think has
I
some.
think one here that works really well is actually this one, right? Because this actually gives you a lot of the clues to
Yeah,
what the story is,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We have an audience, we have this guy performing up here. Like you were talking about, Sergio, it's the line quality is good, it's clear, the gestures are really good for it. Uh, I think this is probably your strongest one in terms of the story. What do you think, Sergio?
Yeah, I agree, man. And one of the things that if you check out Michael, it seems like this one doesn't have the tones and maybe the polish that you've been putting in some of the other ones, but it just goes to show like maybe some of that doesn't matter all the time, right? Which is kind of my point when we do boards. Uh, if you don't have the foundation right, no amount of rendering or like tones or any kind of bells and whistles that you put on top of that is going to fix it. So I think you're right on with this image. So you have a good foundation here. If you were to take this to a next level and clean it up, it's just going to be that much stronger because you're already working off of something pretty solid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Cool. And now that we got you on here, can I ask you, what's your background, and then how's it going with the lessons? Are you into it?
Yeah, without rambling too much, I had a vague digital media type major in college. That was, oh gosh, some years ago. I've been at ILM as a TA and then a motion capture TD now
Ooh, excellent.
for a bit, and I just realized I wanted. Drawing's always been there, obviously, but wanted more creative input and had that be in my day to day. And what I've understood from a story role, it seems like a right mix of a lot of things for me.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear it. And yeah, I was just telling a story of a buddy of mine who started as a production assistant, and he worked his way into. This was back in the day at Lucasfilm, Lucas Animation. We were at Skywalker Ranch, and he worked his way in the story department and became a really clutch guy. He just worked his way up, and it was great doing that. So if that's something you're interested in, I would highly encourage you to stay with it, to stick with it. There's
Yeah, definitely one of the ideals. I recognize there's a lot of grind between me now and then. But yeah.
cool. Well, yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for
There is a
joining us.
quick, yeah, there is a quick question here from Milja. I hope I said your name correctly. Um, Asking about whether you'll still have access to this Discord after the video stuff is done. The intro to storyboarding channel here will remain here, so you can always look back at the other work. If you did an update to your thing, you can always toss it here. Absolutely, you'll still have access to that. At the end of the month, though, the videos will go away, so you won't have access to that once that's officially closed.
Yeah, I think the
But
official date is July 8th. So that'll be up for about a month. So yeah, you guys uh, get on it and get busy storyboarding. And part of the reason that we do that is just to encourage people to take action and participate and enjoy the process. It's not about, to me, it's not about having anything fancy. It's more about just putting in the hours and having experience. Because for a lot of people, this is like the first time they've done boards in what I would hope is a more structured way. Like they might have had a gig here and there. They might have like stumbled on something in the past, or they, like Michael was saying, like had a course or something back in college. But we're trying to train pro artists and to become pros, right? Guys who want to come in and become artists for the entertainment industry. So that's basically what it is. Like now, take action, do something, and then hopefully you have a portfolio piece out of it.
so let's go ahead and jump to the next one here. Arts by John.
Yeah. These are looking great too. And let me see, is this assignment 1? Okay, cool.
This one looks like it's also assignment 1.
Oh no, he's got a bot
These are
problem.
really
It says in his message that he couldn't post the third image for some reason.
yeah. Yeah,
Keep
our
trying, buddy.
Discord
It'll get
sometimes
there.
gets
Yeah.
messed up. Yeah, it gets messed up by the tones, I think. So it all of a sudden thinks that it's like a risque image, even if it's not. So I sorry about that. We've been trying to get that fixed, and Discord's been like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of like protections on this, but these going back to these images though, I think they're looking really solid. Like, what do you think, Chad? I think the things that I see
Agree.
are nice, solid focal point. You got some really good rendering and nice tones, and I see a really good. It's sketchy. You got sketchy line work, but it's confident that you're able to like pull this together to making a really nice image.
Yeah, I agree. It's really clear. Like this one's really cool because like you did a really good job of fleshing out what this eye is, which then makes the scaling of the guy in the foreground really stand a little bit. I might mess with if we're going into the more into the tonal stuff. I might mess with your tones a little bit here, just to add a little more contrast because right
Yeah.
now your scuba guy here kind of gets lost with the rest of the gray tones.
Yeah.
But that's a nitpick at best.
Yeah,
This one's great.
I agree with that one. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
yeah, I like the space motif that you got going there. One thing I would play with on probably both of these is maybe your camera angle. Have you thought about tilting the camera lens? This seems like such a dynamic, kind of very cool actiony type scene for both of them, really. And the one with the eyeball, one of the first thing I think of, and this is, it's just a suggestion, is that maybe pulling the camera out a little bit wider on the eye so that we see just slightly more of the structure of whatever whoever that eye belongs to, whether it's a monster or whatever. Like you would get like maybe the edges of the eyeball or some of the, if it's like a monster or something, you might have like reptile skin or something. And then, you might keep the scuba diver the same size, but just by pulling the camera out wider, it might just help that instant read of what's going on. And then on the second image here, I would probably just tilt the camera a little bit and do something a little more funky just to push it. That's one thing that, Chad has heard me say all the time. But and everybody has their different style, but I always like to try and push things to the edge because I feel the tendency for storyboard artists is to be very conservative when they're making their shots. And what I mean by that is they'll set up a composition and it'll be very even, it'll be very symmetrical, and that can work on a certain type of project. But I feel like that's the default. And so what I'd like to see is people push it to the maximum, push it to the edge, and if it's way too far, you can always pull back a little bit. Most of the time, though, you probably don't push it enough. And even if you think you're going over the edge, you're probably just about 80% there. It's kind of what I always say.
Some work there. Great job.
Yeah, nice stuff.
See, you have some new messages down here, so just want to make sure that we got questions answered.
Yeah, hopefully this is helpful. It's certainly good to see other people's work, right? I think it's just really smart to do that, and not necessarily to compare, right? Not like, oh, he's, this person's better than me, or oh, I really, I'm getting intimidated by this. No, or might even think that you're doing good compared to somebody else. It's more like, what ideas do other people have, and have I thought about those types of ideas, and how do I incorporate that into my own work? Okay, when it comes to improving, I always say you want to compare your growth to yourself, right? Does that make sense? That you're not necessarily comparing yourself to other artists, but the growth that you do is just on your own. So if it takes you longer to get to a certain milestone, that's okay. That's you, and that's fine. You'll get there, but not to get intimidated by looking at other people's work, but learn from it.
I'm going to go and pull up here and see if I can find the next person that we have that's in the chat here.
Yeah, I love it, and I love you guys are already commenting on other people's work and giving your feedback. I like to keep the constructive criticism. I think it's an art form too, to be able to intelligently comment on somebody's artwork and give constructive feedback. Because one of the ways that I like to do is riff off of somebody's idea. They might present an idea and I say, oh, that immediately made me think of this. Have you tried this camera angle? Have you done this? Have you done that? And that's where you have a collaboration going on instead of a contest, right? I don't look at it like a competition.
So this is Denise. Again, I hope I said your name correctly. Yeah, so these are the first 5. He's attached the other 5 we'll look at in just a moment as well. But yeah,
these are great.
Yeah, these are really.
Like the arm wrestling one. Very cool. I think these are all really strong.
Yeah, these are all really strong.
You know,
From
this,
these five,
oh, go ahead,
go ahead.
Chad. Sorry.
I was going to say, from these five, the only one where I'm not completely certain of what's going on is this one right here. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like Mike Night with the mouse as the mic, or like what the context for it is. I think that's a mouse. Um, this is the only one where I'm a little confused on what the story is. Uh, but
Hmm.
all the other ones are really, really good. For
Yeah.
this one, I would only suggestion I would have would be to add a touch of color to these to really make these pop out as them being lipstick, right? Be the only spot where I would have color for this. Uh, but as far as the actual like clarity of the drawing itself, I think you got it. I think it's really, really well done. Very clear.
Yeah, totally. That's a really good point. I would agree. That's you don't have to do much, but if she's playing with lipstick and stuff, it might be a nice accent to do it. Looking at these, is this 5 or 6 images? I think five here.
These are
Uh,
five. We'll look at five other ones here in just a moment
okay.
from the same
Yeah,
person.
Denise, I believe it is. Yeah. So one thing, just looking at this in general, it feels like a lot of your compositions uh, are very, how should I put this? They're very uniform. They're very uh, well. What I would suggest is that you look for opportunities to create more asymmetry and more angles in your composition. I think the one that like the let's see, one, two, third one down with the swing set in the background, like the way that you're positioning the swing set is like horizontal to the camera, and then the figures that you have on screen left are also like they're very vertical, and then the kid's arm span is opening up and it's almost creating another horizontal in the composition. So I always try and look for opportunities where I can break up the angles in the composition. Not just, well, one, to create visual interest. That's one of the reasons you would do that. The other one is you can design the angles in your composition to enhance your focal point. So if the focal point, for example, is the foreground characters with the kid over the dad's shoulders, you could angle the swing set in the background to be pointing almost like an arrow, right? The angle of the top of the swing set could be pointing at that foreground, just like it is now, but you angle it down a little bit more so your eyeball is automatically going there, right? And I think just looking in general at these, a lot of that happens. Like the doorways are very horizontal, creating these verticals, well, horizontal and verticals in your composition. So just some suggestions there. Your drawings are really solid, and the ideas there are really good. But maybe you want to try a couple more of swinging camera angles around and stuff.
See what the other five have here. Thanks,
Cool.
these are really nice.
Great.
Them. Yeah, I think these are all really, really nice. Like, I think this one you could really push the composition a little bit more, right? The girls are a little bit little bit far to the right here.
Yeah.
You adjust your camera angle a little bit so that way they can be a little bit more uh, a little bit more into the frame, and then you could do something with them. Like I like the pose you have, but I would exaggerate this pose as well with this guy as he's being forced, uh, right to up there. But it's again, these are nitpick points. This is still a really fun composition. You just tell the story so really well.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll just say this comment because I think you're ready, Denise. Like your drawing skills are really solid. Your ideas are really good. So this is where I would love to see you push things and also really kind of tighten up in general some of the stuff. Like that one that we just looked at with the girls in the foreground. If you break this down, the perspective is kind of wonky. Right? It works for storyboard, right? Don't get me wrong, but these are the things you have the drawing skills. I think you can tighten up your perspective because the buildings or the kids in the middle ground, it looks like they're on a hill. They're much shorter than the girls in the foreground. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Like you really have to stare and look at this because the horizon line is cutting those kids in the background at the head, and it's cutting the girls in the foreground off at the like kind of midsection or mid torso. So there's a big size difference between those characters, and those are the kinds of things that you'd want to fix up before you put in your portfolio, because you don't ever want when you apply to a job someone being like, oh well, the perspective is wrong on here, because they will look at that and they'll call it out. So you're ready, you got really awesome drawings, and now you just got to tighten up a little bit.
Agreed. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Do a quick check down here at some of the conversation that we have going on.
Yeah, maybe we can do one more, and then I don't know if there's any questions that people want to ask before we jump.
Yeah. So what we did was.
Or by the way, if you want to ask questions, just chime in.
Yeah, just
right
go.
Now,
you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. Yeah. Just want to make sure that we didn't have like 4 or 5 people trying to ask something at once, kind of thing. There we go. Mitchell. This is one. We'll see if we can go up and find a couple of other ones as well for yours. That one. We've seen a couple of other ones.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's another like single panel storytelling images. Can you guys, by doing this, see how challenging it really is to make one panel tell a story, right? You really have to think about the elements in the composition, the placement of the characters, the placement of the camera. I always talk about that in relation to the objects in your scene. And all of that matters. And it matters because you want to have an emotional impact for those characters and make sure that you're getting the most out of the compositions there.
Other ones from you in here, Mitchell. There's this guy right here.
All right.
And then,
Cool.
I know you've gotten some stuff from Wahab as well, and I think we've had a couple of conversations about this, about some of your stuff. But what do you think, Sergio?
Yeah, I think these are looking really solid. I again probably would repeat the previous comment of like it's looking just slightly conservative. Right? You're straight on with the characters, straight onto a wall there. You have a nice shadow, like a nice shadow element. How about if you imagine this, you swing the camera around, maybe 30 degrees to the right. Okay, so what that's going to do is going to put the camera at an angle positioned to your characters, and it's automatically going to throw an angle at that wall in the background, and it's just going to create some more dynamic angles in the shot. Okay, so if you think about it in terms of a camera, to me that makes a big difference. That alleyway one that we just looked at before has some similar elements there. You're straight on down the alleyway, which is creating like an evenness to your composition, but you have a lot of dynamic elements going on there. You got a guy with a sword, and it looks like like an old guy that there's a story there. There's some kind of exchange going on, but it is very flat in the sense that, well, how should I put this? There's depth there. You are creating depth because we're looking down an alleyway. Yet what flattens out the composition to me is that we're straight on, very even on this alleyway, and the characters are completely aligned with the camera. So if you had one character closer to the camera and another character further away, you'd create that asymmetry and distance with the composition a little bit. So those are things to play around with and have fun with.
Yeah. And with the camera height too, you can mess with the camera height or something like this. Like, because right now this one's you're showing kind of a higher camera here because the horizon line's up here. But your characters are still are landed as if the horizon's right here in the middle. So I would mess with that a little bit to help as well. Because right now, like if you keep the camera high in this upper third, you're looking at a higher angle where you're looking down at them, right? But then like if you were to take this horizon line and bring it down to the lower third here, now it's more like your camera is looking up, right?
Yeah.
And what's really cool about doing something like that, like with this one, for sure, would be like it would change the power dynamic of your characters, right? So if you were to have that higher angle, now you're looking at it from one perspective where they may be, something maybe a little bit weaker or whatever, right? If you were to change it to like an OTS of this guy robbing um, the old man, right, of his stuff, having that we're looking down at the old man because we have this type of a high angle would be really, really cool. Conversely, if you wanted it to be the other way, you go with the low angle of this knife in this dude's face as he's having to give up his little treasure. Right now, we're looking at it as from a position of power for the robber, so to speak. Right. That's how having just something as simple as changing that horizon line when you make those kinds of adjustments will change the intent and the tone of the image.
Yeah. Very good points for sure. I guess one thing that that I didn't point out at the beginning, and maybe it's a good idea, good idea to say this as we're getting towards the end, is who we are. Right? You probably know who I am because of the lesson pages and the course you signed up to. You probably know the Storyboard platform because that's what you're on with Discord. But Chad you've probably seen him on here because he's the administrator for Discord and also the moderator for our mentorship group, among other things that he handles with storyboard art as well. And then we mentioned Wahab, who is a community mentor who you'll see on here. You've probably seen him a bunch of times. Also, one of the moderators on Discord. So that's who we are. We're all storyboard artists. We do that for a living. And we also run the mentorship group, which you've probably seen. And we just opened that this week on our website. So it's great. Yeah, if you're looking to get into this, this is what we talk about. We talk about how to make these adjustments that at first might seem like the rocket science, but when you break them down into the steps that you need to do, you can create really strong images. And the more you do that, you're going to be able to compile a portfolio. And that's what we talk about when you get that portfolio to land jobs and get in the industry, because we want people to have success and get traction with this stuff.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, I hope you guys have gotten a lot out of this. We'll continue to be going through these as quickly as we can.
Yeah,
Well, you guys have a lot of great work in here. But we'll be going through all these and at least trying to type in some stuff. Maybe we'll hopefully be able to try and get in and do another one of these kinds of chats or something a little bit later on. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys do have any questions about whether it's the mentorship, even stuff for this, feel free to hit us up.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to chat.
You could email us or message us on Discord for sure. Direct message me. I'm on here. And you can also hit us up at storyboardart.org. That's probably the best email to get us. We have multiple eyes looking at that stuff. So yeah, we're here to help. And love to hear your stories, by the way. People that we have people find us from all over the world, and it's just great to hear the background, like where they came from and what they want to do. I still think there's a bright future for storyboard artists out there because I still don't see a change. Maybe you let me know if you think differently, Chad, but that highly trained artists are still in demand when it comes to storyboards, and that's something that you guys can take advantage of if you have the right training and you have the right portfolio.
Yeah, if you're dedicated, passionate, and showcase that you have one, you know what you're doing, which a lot of you, as I'm seeing, definitely know your stuff. Yeah, but yeah, if you got that passion and stuff like that, there's always something, there's always an opportunity there. So yeah, if you keep on working at it. Would you
Cool.
say storyboarding is one of the more saturated areas in the industry? Yes, but there's also a lot of work that's out there, not just in feature animation. You have feature animation, you have television animation, you have the weird hybrid in between. You've got VR, you've got video games, commercial work, live action work. There's so many different um, options that you can get into for storyboarding that even with as many people as there are getting into it, there's just so much work that's out there.
Yeah, the other factor is, and this is why we do this stuff. The portfolios are still just overall not that strong because I don't feel like people have had the like solid training when it comes to getting into the business. Like a lot of people have dreams to go to the major studios like a Disney or a Pixar, work on big Hollywood films, yet they haven't had the experience working from scripts and creating storyboards and understanding story structure. So that's where if you're trained, you have a solid portfolio, you're going to do well because you're going to be in demand. Even though there might be tons of other storyboard artists, your skills will show off compared to somebody else because you're able to solve the problems that the studios need or the production needs, and that's a goal that you want to get to. Right on.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, guys. I think this might be a good spot to jump off. And like I said, hit me up, give me a direct message, shout out, say hi. I'd love to hear from you guys. And other than that, we'll continue to do this. I think this was super fun, Chad. We're gonna do this more, right?
Yeah, we're going to try and do stuff like this a lot more often in the Discord, in general, with some other cool stuff too. Um, so yeah, I'm glad you guys were able to hop in and take part in this.